Hey guys, Patriot coming to you from the desktop once again with another flashlight video. It wasn't long ago that we did a review on the TM26, the Nitecore TM26, which you see there on the left. A fantastic light, just become one of my favorite, small pocket type of spotlights here recently. The EA4, I've been equally as impressed. It's just that when that light came out, I was a little bit late getting that light due to the fact that the retailer didn't really keep us appraised of delays and so forth. By the time I got the light, it was 4 weeks behind everyone else, and I don't know, just lost a little bit of enthusiasm to do it. But I have been doing a lot of hiking with all of my lights recently in preparation for a video that's going to be to the effect of best hiking light, which is, there's a lot of lights that could be up for that title. And I might have to break it down into 2 or 3 different segments as far as what the best hiking light is going to be. Basically, I've been really impressed with Nitecore products recently, and they've been innovative, and I love their user interface. About the only other user interface that I like as much as the Nitecore series is the Zebra light. So they've come out with another hit in the EA8, and I'm just going to throw it up there right now. There it is. It's a little bit longer than the EA4, obviously, in the body, because it's an 8 AA light as compared to the EA4, which is a 4 AA light. And if I hold these next to each other here, try to give you a good realistic representation of size. I'm a little offset from the camera, so I'm doing everything through the LCD screen here, but there's a pretty good comparison as far as the size goes. Here at the beginning of this video, you'll see me make some references to the EA4, and that's because they're made by the same manufacturer, and the lights are essentially the same user interface, and they're very similar in a lot of ways. This is a little pocket thrower. It's kind of like a pocket searchlight. This is not a pocket light. However, I could call it a compact searchlight. In fact, yeah, there they call it right there, compact searchlight, EA8. And I think it lives up to that name. I haven't had it outside a lot today. Every time I hear it stop raining, I walk outside and kind of shine it down the street and see how far it'll light things up. But I can reach the power line tower, which is over 300 yards away, about 350 yards. So it's certainly impressive on a large target like a power line tower. But the main difference between these two lights is that reflector. You can see there probably 2.5 times the surface area of the smaller EA4. Alright, if we look at the box here, you can see on the EA8 it's 900 lumens. It has a maximum runtime of about 800 hours. That's going to be on low level. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Here's the FL1 throw standard, which is a 1/4 lux at a given distance. You can see that they've got it about 490 meters. Usually they're pretty accurate as far as this goes. I've always found that to get a realistic appraisal or a realistic estimate of what this light is going to do in use for you on common type of targets, whether it's people or animals or your motorcycle parked out in the desert, that type of thing, cut this in about 1/3. So for the American market, call it 490 feet. It's not exactly 1/3, but yards, meters, call it about 1/3. In this case, 490 feet. That's not to say that you're not going to get, be able to see further, depending on the size of your target, the amount of particulates that are in the air, the amount of ambient light that is out there. So in a cityscape, you'll probably get a little bit less performance than you're going to get out in the countryside where it's pitch black. Cut it in 1/3. That's generally about right. I find that rule becomes more real in use every time I apply it, especially lately with all the hiking I've been doing with these various lights. Here's the big departure, 60,000 candela. You can see here EA4, 860 lumens and 20,000 candela. So we're looking at about 3 times the throw capability in the EA8 as we had with the EA4. That's a huge difference in these lights. Obviously you've got twice the amount of stored energy with 8 batteries instead of 4, so it's also going to run longer. Run longer at the same output level, I should say, which let's go ahead and start off with that. The EA8 is capable of a 2 lumen output. We'll cover that shortly here when we get into the user interface. With the EA4 on low, it's still a low output of about 65 lumens. I think I'm remembering that correctly. About 65 lumens on low. So this is a fantastic light, by the way. I will do a retro review on this probably after this one. But the fact that it never had a real low output low was a little bit of a bummer. It cuts down on the versatility of the light. With the EA8 here, we actually have, I'm going to cycle through these, we actually have a 2 lumen output. You can see the difference between 65 lumens and 2 lumens. That 2 lumens again allows this to run for about 800 hours. So it's going to make a great emergency light, a great hurricane / tornado / disaster relief kit light. So this might be something that bug out people or preppers might want to put in their kit. It sure is versatile. In fact, I heard it recently said about the TM26 here that it was kind of like the Swiss Army knife of flashlights. Well, I would say that it's now been overshadowed by the EA8, and the reason that I say that is because this has ultra low output, in fact 1 lumen less than the 3 lumens on the TM26, but it also takes standard AA batteries. You know, you pick your formula, whether it's alkaline, nickel metal hydride, or lithium, this will accept all of them. So a very standard cell. You could empty out your TV remotes if you had to, although you really don't want to use batteries of different charge levels. But in an emergency, you can do just about anything with this thing. Alright, so in my mind, a big increase in versatility with that 2 lumen low. I really like how the levels in this light are spaced out. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about the levels here really quick. Actually, I'll just show them to you. You can see here, turbo is going to be 900 lumens for about 2 hours. High is going to be 590, or we can also call that L4 or level 4. You'll sometimes hear me refer to low, lower, low, mid, and high is L1, L2, L3, L4. It's just an easier way of doing it, especially if they call this low and then this lower. That's just, you know, something's lost in translation there. So I'm going to call these L1, L2, L3, L4. So on L4, 590 lumens for 3 hours and 45 minutes. On L3, 180 lumens for 14 hours. On L2, 50 lumens for 60 hours. And on L1, 800 hours at 2 lumens. Pretty impressive stuff there. This is based off of a 2400 milliamp hour battery. The cells that I currently have in there are 2000 milliamp hour loop cells, but you could easily attain this 2400 milliamp hour using a loop double X cell, which double X cell kind of sounds funny there. A loop double X cells would be 24 to 2500 milliamp hours. I don't know what they were using in this one, but my run times would probably be a little less than what they've got on here. But yeah, pretty impressive stuff. You can see, we'll talk about this. It is IPX8 rated, so about 2 meters submersible, which is kind of standard these days. IPX6 would be a little bit less than that. Let's go ahead and you can see that the light's actually on low level right now. It doesn't have a crenulated bezel or anything. A lot of people say, yeah, I saw a recent flashlight review where the gentleman, who I really like a lot, by the way, I'm not going to say his name, but he said the crenulated bezel was for defensive purposes. Well, when it's only lightly crenulated, it's so that when the flashlight is set face down, you'll know that it's on. You can see I set this down earlier, and I didn't know it was still on, or I just forgot that it was on. All right, let's go ahead and cover the user interface. Let's say we'll start with the light off right now, and I'm using this from a little bit of a funny angle, but I'm going to use it this way. Normally I'd be using it like this with my thumb, but just the way that the camera is, I don't know, I always feel better doing it like this. So I'm going to use my middle finger here to activate it, which makes it a little harder, so hopefully I won't mess up. In any case, this is a 2-stage style switch for those of you who aren't familiar with the Nitecore lights. Anyone familiar with the Nitecore lights like the TM15 or the 26 or the EA8, they're going to recognize this user interface, one of my favorite, by the way. Do a half press and it's going to give you its regular any of its regular modes. It's got last mode memory, so if I shut the light back off again, turn it back on with a half press, it's going to come back on at the previous mode. Half press again, level 2, half press again, level 3, half press again, level 4. From any of these modes, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 2, 3 for example, let's just arbitrarily pick 3. If I press and hold, half press and hold right here, it goes up to turbo, jumps up to turbo. Half press and hold again, returns to the previous level, which in this case was level 3. Hit the switch again, it shuts off. If I do a half press now, it'll come back on to level 3. Another half press, level 4, another half press, level 1. So a lot of time is actually probably going to be spent in these 4 main levels. If I want to go straight to turbo mode, I just do a full press and release. You get instant turbo, full output right there. And that's a full press and release. Okay, if I go back to my regular levels here, here's level 4. If I half press and hold, again it jumps up to turbo there. Half press and hold again, jumps back down to 4. Half press again and hold, jumps back to level 1. So you can see it's really nice because you can access any of the 4 standard levels very quickly with a half press, or you can go with a full press right to turbo every time. If you want to do momentary turbo, full press and hold, don't release. There's a full press and hold. When I release, lights off. Full press and hold, momentary turbo, let my finger off, and it shuts back off. If I want to do momentary low, I do a half press and hold. There's a half press and hold. When I let my finger off, it's going to shut off. Half press and hold, back off again. Let's say I bump it up to level 3 here. So shut off the light, half press and hold, there's momentary level 3. I let off, it releases. Half press and hold, level 3 momentary, finger off, it shuts off. I think I said releases before, I meant shut off. So it's kind of neat that both levels, or both modes, whether it's turbo or any of the standard levels 1 through 4, are accessible momentarily as well. Also from any mode, I think we're at level 3 again. There's 4, there's 1. Let's just start from this mode, for example. If the light is on, 2 clicks are going to give us turbo. Strobe. Double click, we go right to strobe. Press again, light shuts off. Half press, back to our previous standard mode, which is level 1 in this case. Again, double click, brings us to strobe. If I half press and hold, it's going to go to the next hidden mode, which is SOS. Not something that I use a lot, but hey, it's hidden and it doesn't get in the way, so yeah, sure, why not? No problem there. I don't mind it being in there. Half press again and hold, and it goes to beacon mode. Beacon mode is really cool. In fact, this is a mode that I can actually use. Recently, when I was out on that Waters in the Desert hike, I actually got back to my truck a little bit later, but I put this light on strobe mode and threw it up on the dash. And so when I was returning to my vehicle, I actually saw this strobing a long way off. So really like that beacon. I said strobe, I meant beacon. Really like that beacon mode. It lights up the interior of the vehicle pretty bright. It might draw attention to your vehicle, so I would be in a place, in a time where it wasn't going to, draw a lot of attention to your vehicle if that was unwanted. So where I was, no one was out there during the week. If I press and hold again, or I'm sorry. And from this mode, if I do a half press and hold again, it's just going to cycle back through these 3 hidden modes, which are strobe, SOS, half press and hold again, and beacon mode. Likewise, you could put that beacon, you could put this light in beacon mode inside of a tent at camp, and it's going to light it up like a big hot air balloon lights up when the burners are lit. It just flashes the tent, looks like a big, huge beacon. So something that's actually usable, at least by me. Press it all the way and release, and it shuts back off. It also has a lockout mode. If the light is on and you press and hold the button. It's going to flash once, and it's in lockout mode. You see this blinking? It's actually showing us the voltage. I'm going to do that again, and we'll actually count, and I'll tell you what it is. So right now, if the switch gets hit, if the switch is activated, it's not going to turn on the light. You can't do anything. It's in lockout mode right now. To get it out of lockout mode, push and hold the switch. Now this really isn't the best lockout mode. I remember on the Tiny Monster 11 that you actually had to triple click in and out of lockout mode. So triple click to get in, triple click to get out, and I thought that was pretty foolproof. This can still be activated, although this head design here, this angle that's created by the head, makes it less likely than on the EA4 where that switch is just kind of sticking up there in mid-air, so it's not protected, and it's easy for something to push and hold this when it's in lockout mode and have it turn and exit lockout mode. In any case, it's really the only alternative to put it into lockout mode, because with the EA4 and the EA8, simply unscrewing the tail cap, you can see here when it's in standby mode. The light's always in standby mode with batteries in it. If you loosen the tail cap with the TM26 or the Tiny Monster series, it shuts it off. But with this one, it's sprung in both ways. So you basically have to take the tail cap all the way off or down to its last couple of threads to disconnect, or to, well, see, you can see right there it's still on. So there's really no way to store this light with batteries in it without them slowly being drawn down. Now it's probably going to take a couple of years. It's probably about as fast as the discharge rate is of the batteries. But let's say you had this thing set away as a hurricane light with L91s, which are primary lithium batteries, lithium ultimates here. A lot of people like to put these in a flashlight and store the thing away. You know, it might be sitting for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. The shelf life of these is that good. It's going to last a long time. However, the standby mode in this light, because it has an electronic switch, is slowly going to deplete the life in these batteries. So the only way to store this long term is to actually take the cap off. But I would just, alternately, I would just, you know, take the batteries out and put the cap back on. That way you keep dust and particulates and stuff like that out of your light. And I guess we'll go ahead and take the cap off of this and show you the arrangement. Show you the threads up here first. I don't know if they're square or not. I can't see that from here. If they're square, yes, they are square. I guess I can see it. So nice square threads. You'll notice it's been lubed. They've put a silicone lube on here. I didn't do this. Normally the first thing I do when I get a light home is I take a terry cloth, clean the threads off, put some Nio-Gel on there, and make the thing nice and slick. Kudos to Nitecore. I mean, this thing just came this way with the threads nice and clean, everything lubed. I'll let you hear it there when I put the tail cap back on. It looks like I'm zoomed in a little more than I want. So let's go ahead and start with the tail cap. You can see here that it has a floating design here with a contact plate, and this is so that these springs remain in contact with the positive and down batteries, and it's not, you know, dragging over the batteries. Obviously these contacts have to stay lined up, and if this was just a plate, solid contact plate in the back, that wouldn't work. So they kind of used an ingenious little system, same as the EA4, by the way. So if you've seen reviews on that light, it's the same setup. So these are going to be in contact with the negatives, and these little contacts here will be in contact with the positive button on the batteries. The two pins here on the tail cap correspond with these two countersunk holes right here that have to go in here before you start turning it on. So I normally just sort of line them up, eyeball them up like this, and you can see the tail cap is actually turning, but the contact plate with the battery is in a fixed position relative to the position of the batteries. And you can hear those threads. Super smooth. You know, it's great that a light comes ready to go from Nitecore. You don't have to mess around with it. Inside, I've got all Eneloop cells. These are different colored, but they're all from the same batch. I think it was the Costco batch that I bought in a batch of 8. Down inside the light here, you can see the two springs down there, and then 2 positive terminals where the button end here would be in contact with this right here. And you can see that they've got everything labeled nicely, since 4 of the batteries go button positive and down, and 4 of the batteries go positive and up. And that's something I really like about Nitecore lights, by the way, is that they're using this machined setup where the light itself is actually machined for the cells, and you don't have to have a separate carrier. There's nothing wrong with a good made carrier, but this is always my preference. This is always a step above. So just, like the TM26 here, the TM15, the TM11, all the Tiny Monster series lights, the EA4, it's got the same setup in there where it's machined out, so it doesn't need a carrier. Most of the carriers are going to be plastic of some type, and they're a little bit more susceptible to being broken, lost, that type of thing. Dust and particulates and stuff that, when you have the carrier out, this is just a better way. So I really like this. So let's go ahead and put cells in this really quick. To my button end. When you drop in that button end first, since there's no spring down there, you might not want to drop it from this high because it's really going to hit that positive terminal pretty hard. So I always do it at an angle and let it slide in a little bit slower. And these are going to be positive and up. They have springs at the bottom, so you can drop those from any orientation. It's not going to hurt it. And again, here's our 2 holes, and there's our 2 pins. I just kind of eyeball it, line it up, put the cap on, kind of run it in reverse for a second to line up the threads. And that's it. Let's do some close-ups of this. All right, one of the things that I like about the Tiny Monster series and this new EA series is the anodizing is really, really good. I noticed on the EC2 here that it's not the best anodizing that I've seen from Nitecore. It seems like it's a little bit softer, it tends to chip a little bit easier. But on the EA4, for example, I've had that light for some time now, and I suspect it's got the same anodizing as this light, but it's been very robust, very tough. I don't see any missing spots of anodizing. It seems like the entire light is very well finished. There's a little tiny mark right there, but I might have bumped that earlier when I was testing it. Who knows? You can see how centered that LED is. Right there, they've done a really nice job. I actually had my pick of two lights, so I couldn't tell the difference between them. They both look great. In fact, my guy over at Predator EDC threw the batteries in this one first, so ultimately this is what I ended up getting. This light is from Predator EDC, by the way, which I'll touch on again. The other cool thing is that I believe that they're the only one in the country right now that actually has this light for sale. So if you're watching this review, they're probably 5 days, maybe 7 days in front of everyone. So go over to Predator EDC, use discount code Patriot36, and I don't know what the pricing is going to be yet, but it'll either be 5% off, 10% off, free batteries, maybe a combination of them. I don't know, but they're going to take good care of you and they're going to give you good customer service. If I take a real close look at this reflector, I noticed that a lot of LED lights these days have like a micro texture to them with a lot of little rings going through here. This one has a very, very slight amount. You can see how silvery and how reflective that reflector is. So it's really going to contribute. That's how they're getting that 60,000 candela throw, along with the size of the reflector and how polished it is. They've just really done a great job on it. Nice to see that. You can see a nice stainless steel bezel around here. You can see these, obviously, these are the locking keys here to take tighten and loosen it. I noticed that on the EA4 you could actually turn it, but this one seems like it's really cranked in there. See a pronounced set of cooling fins on the EA8, which the EA4 doesn't have. It's a relatively smooth light. This thing is made to run constantly at its turbo mode. At least I think so. detected no step down in this at all yet, and having run it for up to 20-30 minutes at a time. So far it isn't stepping down. I will report with annotation if it does that, and I might even include a video segment with a time lapse that shows that along with the light meter. I did notice that the difference between the EA4 and the EA8 here is about 9%, or I should say it's exactly 9%, and that seems to reflect pretty closely, or go along very closely with what's on the box, 860 lumens as compared to 900 lumens. So another thing that I noticed about the EA8, it's not as voltage sensitive as the EA4 is. So with the EA4, if you use alkaline cells in the EA4, you're going to have a little bit initially a little bit higher output than if you use 4 nickel metal hydride cells in this light. The reason is because each cell, alkaline cell, is 1.5 volts, whereas the each cell that's nickel metal hydride is about 1.2 to 1.4 volts. So these have a little higher initial voltage. However, once the current is drawn from those cells and they're under load, pretty soon the alkaline drops very rapidly. So if you were to look at it on a chart, it's a pretty pronounced drop, whereas the nickel metal hydride cells do very well under load. So within, I would say, 5 or 10 minutes, I'd have to look at the runtime charts provided by the people at CPF or Candle Power forums, but within a short amount of time, the nickel metal hydride cells are actually brighter than the higher voltage initially alkaline cells. The point of all this is to say that no matter what cell you use in the EA8, it's exactly the same brightness, whether I use alkaline cells, nickel metal hydride cells, or these cells. So the main benefit of these cells is longer shelf life, and that the light is going to be a little bit lighter, actually about 20% lighter with a full load of these as compared to nickel metal hydride. So we'll talk about weights here in a minute. A little bit shorter and squattier. You can see it's pretty steady. This light is a little bit more teetery. Alright, also, if these lights are on a flat surface like they were earlier when I was trying to take pictures and have these all lined up and spaced the same distance apart, you can see they can be uncooperative. So they don't really have a good anti-roll feature, but at the same time it kind of results in a pretty nice clean design. Alright, I can't remember exactly what this light weighs empty. I'll have to annotate that, but I did weigh it with batteries. With nickel metal hydrides, the ones that you saw in here, the Eneloop cells, with 8 of those it's 510 grams, or 1.12 pounds. With the lithium cells, the L91s in here, it's substantially lighter, about 20%, 420 grams, or 0.92 pounds. This light kind of comes with the same things as the EA4 did. It's going to have the little lanyard in there. It's going to have a little instruction manual that you guys already saw, a little instruction page I should say, and it's going to have a holster. And so this little holster is pretty much the same design that was on the TM26. I'm reaching down on the ground here for it since I dropped it, but it's a drop-through style with an open bottom. This is always going to be a little bit exposed. If you don't want to scratch your light, you're probably going to have to put this in a separate bag, or just be careful what you're doing with it. If you're crawling around on the ground or up in the attic or in a cave or something like that, you're probably going to scratch this up. It's you know, it seems like it's pretty strong, but it will scratch. With this light, you can tell by its length what's going to happen here. It ends up being more of a baton style, or kind of the way that a law enforcement officer used to wear his mag light, with the thing hanging down through the ring. So just be aware that this is going to take some wear and tear. If you're wearing this on duty, for instance, it's going to get beat up down here. So my advice would be to either find a fully enclosed case if you want to protect your light better, or don't worry about it and just let the normal wear and tear happen. Sometimes people see that as putting character into their light. Alright, well, you saw it with the other lights side by side. Let's throw a couple of other ones in there. Here it is compared to a TK75, if you have this light. Very similar in length, actually. The EA8's a little bit shorter. Here's the big difference though. Huge difference in the size of the head between these two lights. Length overall is the same. This is a much more comfortable light in the hand because of that AA format. Alright, let's go take these and compare on a white wall. I think I mentioned it's raining outside, and so I can't go out and do beam shots tonight. I just got this tonight, so we'll have to settle for some white wall tests. And I just want to show you the difference in spot size and the difference between the low output of both of these lights. So let's go check that out really quick. Okay guys, I've got two lights here. I've got the EA4, which will be on the left side, and the EA8, which will be on the right side. Let's go ahead and turn on the EA4. That's going to be its low output level, which is 65 lumens. Again, that's on the left. And here is the EA8 over here on the right at 2 lumens. You can see a substantial difference there. 65 lumens, 2 lumens, big difference in versatility. If I bump up the EA8 to level 2, you can see now it's much closer to that 65 lumens out of the EA8. This is probably one of their most comparable levels right here. You can see that you can even tell, probably can tell, that the EA8 has a smaller, more sharply defined hotspot, and it's also very slightly warmer in tint than the EA4, at least my sample of it. Let's go ahead and bump both of these up to level 3. Now we're both at level 3. You can see how intense that hotspot is over here on the right side. Here's level 4 and level 4. And lastly, we've got turbo and turbo. So the camera's not stopping down, so it's a little bit hard. So we're going to have to zoom in a little bit here in order to tell the difference. Okay guys, we're zoomed in a little bit. This will give us a better comparison at the higher levels. EA4 is in the left hand, EA8 in the right hand. That's low for the EA4 and low for the EA8. We're going to jump up to L2. There's L2 and there's L2 for the EA8. Here's L3 for the EA4 and L3 for the EA8. You can start to see a difference there. L4 for the EA4 and L4 for the EA8. Now the camera's stopping down, doing what it's supposed to. And turbo for the EA4 and turbo for the EA8. Pretty big difference there in hotspots. And remember, the EA4 over here is no slouch. It's just that this light is so much more intense as far as the concentration of that beam goes. So pretty impressive stuff. Alright guys, there you have it, the Nitecore EA8. I hope that these comparisons were helpful. And we'll get out and do some proper beam shots, beam comparisons of these at a later time. Probably next video, we'll see. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap things up. You can get this light over at Predator EDC. He actually hand delivered this light to me today. Really nice guys over there. And use coupon code Patriot36, and they're really nice folks to deal with over there as well. In fact, he got this light to me. It was a big thing for him to get this light to me first and get a review out there. He's really excited about it. So thanks again guys. If you liked the video, go ahead and give me a like. Thanks a lot guys. Patriot out.